Today's Diana Prince is Krystal Avalos. She's the founder of Mundo Resources and a passionate HR consultant with over a decade of experience with building strong, effective teams. She collaborates with executives to build programs that improve retention and accountability. She loves shaping the culture of companies by defining missions and values. She's a proud Latina and a proud plant mom. She enjoys traveling, hiking, and seeking new adventures. Krystal, welcome to Diana Prince.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So we're going to talk about something that is definitely a trigger word for me because I come from corporate. Employee retention, and performance management and all those words that are just, used in the corporate scheme. So I really am excited to have this conversation because as somebody that has a corporate background, I want to understand what it is you do and who you do it for and get your backstory as well. So before we jump into the topic of performance management and employee retention, I first want to get an understanding on how you got into this business. Do you yourself have a corporate background? And if that's the case, give us a little snapshot of what it was like to jump into business ownership.
Yeah, well, that was not originally my plan. I've been in HR for 10 years. And I ended up deciding to kind of go on my own and seeing how I could bring what I've learned to more than one organization, I had a colleague who was going through an entrepreneurial journey, and I was like, maybe that sounds like something I could do. And what really interested me is that I had been very big on helping develop one organization. I had really done a lot of work within an organization, within one HR department. And I wanted to be a lot more values focused, mission focused when I selected my next challenge. And somehow along that journey, I ended up deciding that helping more organizations taking on challenges of multiple companies was, kind of what the next chapter was for me. I have been in HR for 10 years and I was able to work with organizations that allowed me to kind of develop my skills in all areas of the department. I'm very passionate about employee retention, which is, I know what we're going to talk about today. And I don't know, I thought that it would be the best next chapter for me to be able to hone those skills, kind of getting hit from different organizations, different challenges across different industries.
Okay. So as a small business owner now, providing a service to your clients, tell us about that client. What would that client look like? It's a mid-sized company, who would your ideal client be right now?
So my ideal client is somebody who cares, somebody who has the challenge of, whatever HR challenge it is. Let's take employee retention, who has the challenge and wants to do something, truly wants to invest the time and resources necessary to get through that. And that may be difficult, the things that need to be done, the conversations that need to happen, the time that it takes. That's what I want.
Okay.
If I could pick, obviously it's earlier on in the process than later. So maybe an HR department of one in a company that's looking to grow. Not necessarily a startup, but once you have a few of those employees on board, 5 to 10 is a good time to start developing that department, that policy, that protocol, that company culture. So that you can have the groundwork there for when you get to those, 10, 15, 20 employees, you're not starting to implement a handbook or what you believe your values and mission are going to be.
Right. So the right time to do it is before you start bringing on your employees, I would think, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah.
definitely start thinking about this as soon as you're going to bring on that first employee. So when you are when you're deciding to hire somebody on, I've heard this a lot from entrepreneurs. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of policy that comes with your very first employee. And once you hit that 15, you've got, so many more. So that's why I think the sweet spot is from that 5 to 10. Obviously, if it
Wow.
was up to me, day one, you're thinking about it, write it down. The way your passion for your entrepreneurship journey and how you want that to be represented in your organization. That's something that you need to be thinking on how you're going to make your team kind of live those values as well.
Got it. Got it. No, I do interview a lot of solopreneurs, and we are definitely always developing our own mission. And I would think that those elements go into that first employee up to the fifth, and hopefully more. That's all kind of gets structured around what we've already established.
Right.
Right. So then let's get into a little bit of the employee retention. So in terms of the retention strategy, for a company, what would you say is the best retention strategy? I could tell you that, like, as an employee, employees want more money, right? But are there other options? Is that, is there something else there that can help companies keep their employees longer?
Absolutely. When I'm thinking of employee retention, I'm thinking of 3 different areas. So
Mhm.
compensation, like you said, that's the first thing that comes to mind. So your compensation and benefits, your compensation can include wellness programs, can include employee assistant program. So all of that is important and matters. And like you said, typically first to come to mind. But yes, there are other options, and research shows that there are 2 other very important areas that I look at as well. And everything that I'm going to say today is in no way saying that compensation isn't important. It is very important. And again, it's just something that we typically think about immediately when we think about employee retention. The other 2 areas are going to be career development and the work
Mhm.
environment. So how are you developing your employees? How are you holding them accountable? What is the communication environment, the feedback loops that you're creating, the leadership that you have in place to develop your team and set the expectations and get the team there to perform the way the organization, wants people to perform.
Got it.
So I think that is very important. As well as the other area that I think of when I think of employee retention is going to be your organizational culture and engagement. So the culture is the shared values. So what we were talking about that the entrepreneur is so passionate about and wants to ensure and instill in their organization is kind of the shared norms and accountability metrics as coworkers. So what is acceptable in terms of work-life balance? What are we recognizing and rewarding each other as coworkers? That kind of glue that holds the organization and teamwork and camaraderie is also very important in ensuring that your employees stay engaged and retained.
Okay. So let's let me ask you something in terms of small businesses who are challenged and may not have the room for the compensation structure that a corporation would have or the benefit structure that a corporation would have. Is there something that you can offer to the small business owner for employee that can help with employee retention? Does that completely then sit somewhere more on the communication route, or what can a small business owner do to help with they have 1, maybe 2 employees at the time, and they just don't have the means to build out a full structure. So
Absolutely. I think it's also almost even easier because there's a lot of reports and research. One of the top reasons that employees leave is because they have unclear expectations, unclear goals and metrics for what the job that they're doing, and unclear of how that ties into the bigger picture. So if you're a smaller group of people, you're able to communicate more easily, and they see kind of the fruit of their labor in the big organization. But so mapping out how their personal or, impact hits that bigger organization, and that kind of gets a little bit harder as the organization grows. And that's number one, top reason. Again, there's a lot of information out there. The top reason that employees are leaving. So building your performance management program, since you have 1-2 employees, is going to be crucial. As the organization grows, obviously you're going to have to instill strong leadership to help you manage the performance management piece and the career development piece. But as an entrepreneur, you should be doing that, with your team. So ensuring that they know exactly what is expected of them, giving them goals and metrics that tie to that compensation piece of it, that tie to the incentive piece of it. That also ensuring that they see their progression, whether it is in their career or the organization, as they see their work kind of develop in the bigger picture.
So they need to to understand that they're part of a bigger, picture. And I guess it's meaning that, I guess it adds meaning to their work versus
Absolutely.
just a bunch of tasks that they're doing.
You get a sense of belonging within the organization. You get a sense of job security, because if I could see how my work affects the bigger picture, I know that that in a sense, my job is here. I am secure in what I'm doing.
Got it. So then, when it comes to employee retention, I left corporate, you left corporate. So, why did you decide to focus primarily on that niche, to help companies with that retention? Was it something with your backstory? Did you feel a little bit disconnected from your company, or?
So, like I said from the beginning, I didn't necessarily intend to leave corporate. I think that I had a very good career within my 10 years in corporate that allowed me to learn a lot. My last role did in every role. I've been in high turnover companies and industries, and in my last role, I'm really focused on that retention and performance management piece. I've been very big of taking on a challenge, leaving, taking a break. I call them radical sabbaticals. So completely, not having a return date, just, whether I decided to volunteer full time or take a class, personal development, whatever I did, vacation for an extended period of time. I was always very big on separating. And when I came back, I really wanted to, because I came back to, around this quiet quitting and all of those trends, the titles that they put on what's going on with the workforce. And I know that organizations can make an impact. They don't have to lose their staff. They just have to put, an effort into these programs. You shouldn't be worried about quiet quitting if you know that you have the structure of developing your team. Like, if you are getting to know and communicating, getting feedback from your team, that is not okay, people can be quiet quitting or not quiet quitting. You know exactly where your team is at, what goals need to be met. And I really wanted to do that for more organizations than just, I tend to be loyal, hardworking, and really go to bat for an organization that I join. And I wanted to be more intentional at being able to do that from remote.
Great. Wonderful. So I just one more follow-up question, and then we're going to dive into a little bit of your, what you like to do on the personal side, because I'm really intrigued. Is there such a thing? Is there an employee that is unreachable? Because at what point, when you were talking about the quiet quitting and everything like that, and the fact that these programs could actually help that, But is there a category of employee that is beyond that reach?
I'm very passionate about employee retention. I'm equally passionate about hiring for the company culture, for the organizational values and mission. And I think that is what I would say an employee that's unreachable. Somebody that was
Got it.
hired that does not match what you want your organization to do. So we're talking about entrepreneurs. Somebody, I mean, you're never going to find, or it is not likely you'll find employees that are going to have the same passion, the same drive that you do, because it's not it's not their company. But somebody who embodies the values and can work within that organization is going to be much more reachable than somebody
Mm-hmm.
from who day one their values was not that. I'll give an
Got it.
example. If you are a 100% work-life balance. I want, they have to take PTO. They have to do half-day Fridays or whatever. That is something that's very big. Somebody who is starting off their career and they know right now they want a position that they're going to go hard, they're going to do all the overtime, that they are there for the experience. They are wanting to work 100% of the time. They don't want time off. That's something that's very off. If you're, they're not going to take their PTO. They're going to expect, answers all the time. They're going to be on all the time. And that's not something that your organization, that's not something that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's going to be hard for you. It's going to be hard, for you to set those boundaries, set the
Work culture to
right
be, yeah.
for them. And you
Yeah.
may not be giving them what they are needing. So they're going to leave to find a culture in which they can soak up absolutely everything 100% of the time because their sole focus is turning out my career, getting developed. And I think the right answer to the question here is, what would be the best retention strategy for
Mm-hmm.
every company? And I think that it's knowing your employees. So I
Okay.
talked about the hiring piece, but once they're on board, knowing exactly what each one of your employees wants, what they look for in their career progression, what they're looking for, the position personally that they're in now, is going to help you understand if it's an employee that you need to retain. Is it somebody that was hired for your organization, and or you can meet them halfway and work with them and what they're dealing with, personally, professionally, meet their expectations, or is it not?
Mm-hmm. And there may be some situations where you're like, okay, we're not aligned.
Absolutely.
We're not
And
aligned.
having the conversations of, your side effect career development piece is going to, it doesn't have to be, I know that these are tough conversations, but it doesn't have to be negative. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, allowing them to also seek, hey, I think, because we hired them, we didn't do a good job of ensuring that we were hiring for those values. But having those conversations of, hey, I'm not going to be able to develop your career this way, or I'm not going to, maybe we're not about work-life balance. I'm not going to be able to give you the work-life balance that you're looking for. These are the expectations here. Is going to allow them to make an informed decision of if they want to leave the company as well.
Oh, that's really good to know. And it's funny because had I talked to you like 2 years ago, to help navigate that, because it always seems to be that conversation. Let me just stop right here because it's an unfinished though. We're gonna edit this one out. So we're gonna just leave that there and segue somewhere else. Okay, let me just reset. So that okay. So that's interesting that you say that, because a lot of the times, I have a 30-year career in the corporate world, and it wasn't as clean, in terms of my exit. So, you got the HR piece of it that I'm very familiar with, and having that conversation and getting to the core of why you're not, you're not engaged. Obviously the employee has to take some ownership of recognizing that, there is no alignment, but also the management has to recognize we can't align, that there is no alignment. And everyone can then make their decisions going forward. And hindsight is 2020, but that's definitely what, when I was leaving corporate, it was a very slow, process to come to the realization that after 30 years, my values are no longer aligned here. It was really hard to pull myself out. So I do appreciate that, that fact that, you got to flush it out first, and you got to bring it to the table and have that conversation, from both sides. I think that's, and both sides have to understand that maybe this deal doesn't work anymore.
And I think that is very big, especially when talking about corporate, the leadership of the company. So a lot of times we see in these organizations that the leaders that are placed are because they're good at the job itself and not necessarily have the leadership skills to develop their team, to have these performance and goal setting conversations, to have these work-life balance conversations, to set the clear expectations of how your role fits into the bigger picture. So ensuring that an organization is developing leaders, one, so develop leaders, strong leaders to be able to do the performance piece, and two, to allow them the time. Again, if you have a leader who the organization did not structure them the time to have the one-on-ones, to have the evaluations, to set the goals, to evaluate those goals with them, to have these conversations, then they're just part of doing the work versus facilitating their team and ensuring that strong team happens.
Correct. That's really, I think definitely from a small business standpoint, you've really given me some food for thought. The way you are engaged and the way that you're interacting and how much that person knows will enable them to not only to do their job better, but also stay engaged with your brand and your company. So thank you for that. I love that. So now I just really want to ask you one thing, and because I love to travel, and I understand that you do too. I want to bring that to the table and have a conversation about where have you been? What is, tell me how many countries you visited. Tell me what has been your most amazing trip that you've taken, and go for it.
That's a great question. I talk about travel all day. Even I'm more passionate about travel than I am probably about HR. But I've been to 29 countries. I have been very big since I was in college. I mean, even before, but maybe not so international. But since college, I have the travel bug and never let it go. I would say my best trip. I took one of my radical sabbaticals and I just backpacked through Europe, for 11 months. My goal was to make it a year. I ran out of money, but I traveled, for 11 months through Europe, Eastern Europe, and that was amazing. I did sections of it, so I think about 3 to 4 months, as a solo travel, and that I don't think you can. I think you learn so much from traveling. I mean, immersing yourself in other cultures. You only have yourself to count on if you're doing it, solo. You put yourself out there in terms of meeting people, trying new things. So I'm all about it. And that solo trip, the portion that I did myself, that was
wow.
That did a lot for me in terms of personal growth.
Yeah, I've never taken a trip not so, no, I haven't taken a trip solo. I've always done it with somebody, and I love the idea because, back in the day I didn't, first of all, let's just say it didn't happen. So, but I was always waiting for that travel buddy though, or that person that would travel with me. And you end up, I know that, a lot of time passed where I could have just been traveling versus seeing if, Fulana would travel with me or whatever the case may be. Absolutely. And it didn't happen. So, I will, I would always advise every woman to, find out how to travel alone if there's nobody there to do it with you, because time passes. And I can tell you from my experience that kudos to you for doing it. and
Absolutely.
not
Thank
letting
you.
that time fucking pass. Do it. Just do it.
Yeah, my
And
goal is always to hit my age, be the same number of countries I've visited, and once I hit that, I could just do at least one new country.
oh my
I
gosh.
haven't made it. I'm a few countries behind.
29 countries is a lot. That's your whole, right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
29. Yeah, I was
I,
hoping to hit 30 by 30, and I didn't. I missed that.
yeah.
COVID happened, so I am a few years behind, but I'll catch up one day.
Yeah, you will. There was one time I hit 3 countries like in less than 2 days because they were, there's this Angora, I think it's
Mhm.
called in Spain. So you can
Mhm.
literally hit
Oh, yeah.
France, Spain for 2 hours,
Yeah.
drive through Angora and get to Spain. So if you haven't done that one,
Yeah.
that'll get you 3. No, but I absolutely love travel. And I love to be able to talk to you about it because I think it's important. I think it's also important for women, not to do it. And I hope that, nowadays it's a little bit more accessible, for women solo travelers. So, thank you for that. And, so then as a traveler, I think I want to hear what your favorite book is of all time. The one that has made the most impact on you. It could be fiction or nonfiction.
So I saw that question, and the first thing that came to mind was actually not a fiction and not about travel. It was "You're a Badass" from Jen Sincero.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which we're talking about pronunciation. I know that name's Italian, Sincero, Jen Sincero, I assume is how you say that last name. Um, and maybe not the book itself, but it was the first, it was my world into self-help. Before then, I don't know if it was because I was too young or just thought self-help was just like wooey stuff that I wasn't into. But
Mm-hmm.
that was my first book into like just really diving into personal growth. And so it opened up this window of, great books on the other side. That I don't know why we think so, negatively of self-help, but that book was more of because it helped me just get into a whole genre of books that before I was like, not for me, I never do that.
Mm-hmm. No,
But I
that's
love that
wonderful.
book. It's a great
That's
book.
great. No, self-help books. Um, for a while, I was like, reading a ton of them, and then I took a pause and recently finally picked up like what is it called? Oh gosh, Atomic Habits.
Yes.
Atomic Habits, and there. What's funny that I learned, it's one of those things that you can implement right away. So I appreciated it, but I also did the self-help route, and there's a lot of learning in there that you could do. It's hard to implement. Did you find it easy to implement a lot of like the advice that she gave in that book, or was it all like anecdotal that just kind of gave you, pause?
No, I mean, I thought it was, I think, again, I think it's, with self-help books, it's where you are in your, time, where you are in your headspace, in your career, in your,
Hmm.
just where you are in your own journey. You kind of pick up what what hits at that time. I've
Yeah.
actually read that book multiple times and gotten something completely different out of it. The next time I read it. And I think it has to do a lot with where you're at.
I That's a good point. That's a very good point. Thank you for that. It's true. Like I guess you do have to pick it up several times and see what you pull from it. But my expectation was always like, okay, well, let me see where what I can glean from this. And it's few, and it, to your point, probably where I'm at. This is what I need right now, and pulling that. Thank you for the book recommendation and for your insights on traveling. And I think we're going to close it out. I thank you so much Krystal for joining me on Diana Prince. If you want to learn more about Krystal and Mundo resources, be sure to visit her website shown in the description. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep seeking out extraordinary stories. Until next time, this is Angela Acosta. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.